You wake up, you open your eyes, and before your feet even hit the floor, before the day actually begins.
You already feel behind.
Exactly. You already feel behind. It's that profound, like bone-deep tiredness that a full 8 hours of sleep just does not fix.
Yeah, it really doesn't.
Welcome to the Deep Dive, everyone. Today, our mission is to unpack the architecture of that exact feeling. We are looking at this invisible psychological weight we carry around.
Right, the mechanics of modern burnout.
Yeah, and how to actually reset a mind that feels permanently overwhelmed.
It is a heavy way to start a morning.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's an experience that is becoming almost universally shared with, well, pretty much everyone you talk to.
100%. It's everywhere.
And what we are exploring here today isn't, another round of time management hacks.
Thank goodness.
Right? We aren't looking at calendar optimization or how to hit inbox zero. We are fundamentally redefining why that overwhelming exhaustion happens in the first place.
Because it turns out it has very little to do with how much physical work you are actually accomplishing, right?
Exactly.
And that is the part that completely reoriented my thinking on this. I mean, you don't wake up feeling behind because you didn't try yesterday.
No, not at all.
You feel that way because no matter how much effort you put in, your brain is like registering as just not enough.
It's a burden housed entirely in the mind.
Yeah. And it's not just a static emotion, is it? This invisible weight triggers a highly predictable, incredibly frustrating behavioral cycle.
It does. Psychologically, we can conceptualize this as a closed behavioral loop. Let's trace the architecture of it.
Hey, let's do it. Where does it start?
It always begins with a thought.
Yeah.
Specifically, you visualizing the aggregate of everything you quote-unquote should be doing.
Oh, man. The infinite mental to-do list.
Yes.
It's not just, do the laundry. It's do the laundry, answer those 5 lingering emails, fix my posture, save for retirement, and somehow learn a second language.
Right. All at once. And trying to hold all of those disparate shoulds in your conscious working memory simultaneously, well, it creates an immediate severe cognitive bottleneck.
A bottleneck.
Yeah. Your brain perceives a mountain of threats it cannot possibly neutralize all at once. So the nervous system responds the way it has evolved to respond to overwhelming odds.
Which is to just shut down.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It triggers the freeze response.
Mm-hmm.
The overwhelm leads directly to paralysis.
Yeah.
You end up doing nothing.
Which is just an agonizing state to be in. I mean, you sit there on the couch staring blankly at the wall, fully aware of the mountain of tasks, but completely unable to initiate movement.
Yeah, you're just stuck.
It doesn't feel like relaxing at all. It feels like being trapped.
And that feeling of being trapped catapults you into the next phase of the loop, which is guilt.
Ugh, the guilt.
Because you are doing nothing, and you are intensely aware you should be doing something, the brain generates a massive spike of guilt. Now, the human mind absolutely hates the acute discomfort of guilt. I mean, it is a highly aversive emotion. So the brain immediately looks for an escape hatch to relieve the psychological pressure.
And what's the escape hatch?
It finds one in the form of a promise.
Yeah.
You tell yourself, okay, tomorrow will be different. Tomorrow I'll wake up at 5 a.m., I'll be perfectly disciplined, and I'll conquer the entire mountain.
Oh, I have made that exact promise so many times. And making that promise gives you a little hit of dopamine, right?
It does. It relieves the immediate pressure.
But then tomorrow comes, the mountain is exactly the same size, and that familiar weight is still sitting right there on your chest. You're just back at step 1.
You're right back where you started.
Okay, let's unpack this a bit more. If our brains are so highly evolved, why does the brain trap us in this paralyzing cycle of guilt instead of just, letting us rest when we sit down on the couch and do nothing?
That is the million-dollar question.
Because, I mean, if I think about my smartphone, right? If I have way too many background apps open, like location services tracking my every move, social media pulling data, email refreshing every 2 seconds, my battery drains rapidly even if I'm not actively holding the phone and doing anything. The phone is exhausting itself just maintaining the potential to do things. Is that what's happening to us neurologically?
That is exactly what is happening. The background app analogy perfectly describes the state of the human nervous system in this loop.
Wow.
Why doesn't the brain let you rest? Because, according to your internal ledger, the rest hasn't been earned.
Ouch.
Right. The feeling of exhaustion isn't a result of physical laziness. It is generated by the persistent nagging calculation that you are feeling.
So when I'm on the couch,
When you're in that free state, your brain isn't categorizing doing nothing as recovery. It categorizes doing nothing as a survival failure.
doing nothing is categorized as a failure. So the brain is like actively punishing you for trying to recharge.
Yes, through an evolutionary misfiring. Guilt is an evolutionary mechanism designed to correct behavior that harms the tribe.
Oh, I see.
If you didn't gather food, the tribe might starve. So you feel guilt to correct that behavior. But in our modern context, with an infinite conceptual to-do list, your brain is misinterpreting your biological need for rest as a moral failing.
Because the to-do list is never done.
Exactly. You haven't completed the endless shoulds, so you must be harming the tribe. Instead of entering the parasympathetic rest and digest state, your nervous system stays locked in a low-grade fight-or-flight response.
Even when you're just sitting there.
Even when you're perfectly still, you are physically still, but neurochemically, you are sprinting away from a predator. That is why you wake up exhausted.
The battery was draining all night, just keeping the alarm bells ringing.
Precisely.
Okay, if the guilt loop and that bone-deep exhaustion are just the symptoms, the battery draining from background apps, we have to look at the root cause. Why are we running so many incompatible background apps in the first place? And I think this brings us to a major redefinition of what burnout actually is, because the source material flips the traditional understanding entirely on its head.
It really challenges the core assumption most of us have internalized since we first, entered the education system or the workforce.
Right. Because if you ask almost anyone, hey, what causes burnout? The immediate reflex answer is always working too hard.
Putting in too many hours.
Yeah, pure, raw effort depleting the tank. But the reality, according to this, is that burnout does not come from effort alone. It comes from misaligned effort.
Misaligned effort. That distinction changes the entire landscape of how we view our own energy levels.
Wait, here's where it gets really interesting, and I have to play devil's advocate here to clarify this.
Go for it.
If we say burnout comes from misalignment rather than pure effort, are we letting toxic work environments off the hook? Like, are we saying that someone working 80 hours a week on a project that feels deeply authentic to them might not burn out, but someone working just 20 hours a week at a job that feels completely hollow will, you can't just authentic your way out of severe sleep deprivation.
Right.
Physical limits do exist.
What's fascinating here is that you are absolutely right that physical limits exist, and sleep deprivation will eventually break anyone down.
Yeah.
But we have to distinguish between physical exhaustion and existential burnout.
Okay, so they're different.
They are two entirely different mechanisms. When you are working 80 hours a week on something deeply authentic to you, you will absolutely experience profound physical fatigue.
Sure.
Your muscles will ache, your eyes will be tired, and you will need a long recovery period of sleep. But, and this is the crucial difference, the effort itself generates a psychological return on investment. The meaning you derive from the work feeds energy back into your emotional and cognitive systems. You are physically depleted, but internally you feel full.
So the circuit is closed, energy goes out, meaning comes back in.
Exactly. But let's look at the person working 20 hours a week at a job that conflicts with their core values. They are experiencing something psychologists call cognitive dissonance.
Because what they're doing doesn't match what they believe.
Right. Their internal beliefs do not match their external actions. Resolving that dissonance requires a massive amount of active, continuous willpower. Every email they send, every meeting they sit through requires them to suppress their actual self and perform an identity that isn't theirs.
They are essentially wearing a mask all day, and keeping that mask perfectly in place just takes a massive toll.
It causes a phenomenon known as ego depletion. Forcing yourself to care about things you don't actually value costs measurable glucose in the brain.
Wait, actual glucose, like physical energy?
Yes. It is catastrophically draining on a neurological level. You aren't just expending energy on a task. You're expending energy to manufacture the motivation for the task. That kind of emotional labor hollows you out from the inside. That is true burnout. It isn't a volume problem. It's a friction problem.
It's the difference between being physically tired from hiking a mountain you chose to climb versus the sheer mental exhaustion of walking on a treadmill in a windowless room just because someone told you it was mandatory.
That is a perfect way to put it.
The physical output might be similar, but the psychological toll of the treadmill just leaves you empty. But if we know that burnout comes from this misaligned effort, from chasing goals that aren't actually ours and walking on treadmills we didn't choose, How did we end up on the treadmill in the first place?
We end up there because human beings are incredibly social creatures, and our brains are constantly scanning our environment to figure out what the rules of survival and success are.
Right. We are constantly, relentlessly absorbing what the source calls the noise.
Yes, the noise.
It's this external messaging dictating what success should look like. What milestones we should hit, how fast we should achieve them, and ultimately what kind of person we should become.
And the most dangerous part of this noise is how quiet and insidious the infiltration process actually is.
It sneaks up on you.
It really does. We don't consciously sign a contract agreeing to these new standards. We begin measuring our lives against metrics we never actually chose, simply through sheer repetition.
It's like walking into an optometrist's office, picking up a random pair of prescription glasses, putting them on, and then wondering why you have a massive headache and keep tripping over the furniture.
Exactly.
You are trying to navigate your reality through a lens that was literally engineered for somebody else's eyes.
That's a great analogy.
But if this happens so quietly, subconsciously, how do we even begin to recognize which standards belong to us and which are just the inherited noise?
To understand that, we have to look at the sheer volume of data we are processing every day.
Okay.
Historically, a human being's standards for a good life were defined by their immediate physical community. A few dozen, maybe a few hundred people.
Your village.
Right. You knew what was expected of you based on the very tangible needs of your village. Today, though, through global connectivity and algorithmic curation, you are bombarded with the highlight reels of billions of people.
It's just too much input.
Way too much. Your brain uses heuristics, these mental shortcuts, to determine what is normal or good. When the algorithm feeds you a constant stream of 25-year-old billionaires, perfectly aesthetic morning routines, and flawlessly optimized home lives, your brain recalibrates its baseline for normal.
It creates a mathematically impossible composite image of the ideal human.
Yes.
Like you need the perfect career, the perfect relationship, the fitness model physique, and absolute mental zen all simultaneously.
And it is entirely artificial. No single human being is doing all of those things. But your subconscious absorbs this composite image as the new minimum requirement for survival.
Which is terrifying.
It is. And here is where the entire architecture crashes together. When you inevitably fail to meet these borrowed artificial standards, what does your brain do?
Oh, I see. It throws you right back into the freeze state. It triggers the guilt loop we talked about in segment 1.
Precisely. You feel that profound sense of falling behind.
Man.
The artificial noise dictates misaligned goals. Chasing those misaligned goals causes the friction of cognitive dissonance. That friction drains your cognitive battery, leading to exhaustion. And the exhaustion prevents you from doing anything, which triggers the paralyzing guilt loop.
It is a perfectly constructed, self-sustaining architecture for total burnout.
It really is.
Okay, so the mechanics of the trap are painfully clear now. We have a brain that thinks doing nothing is a moral failure, draining its own battery, trying to solve artificial problems inherited from algorithms.
That sums it up.
Now we have to pivot to the escape route. How do we break a cycle that is this deeply entrenched in our own neurology?
The intervention requires stepping out of the conceptual and into the literal.
Yeah.
It begins with the strategy of the pause, the hard reset.
And what I find so fascinating about this approach is how completely counterintuitive it is.
How so?
Because when we are in the middle of that overwhelm, when that mountain of shoulds is towering over us, our deepest instinct is to try and fix the entire mountain at once. Right?
Absolutely.
We want to organize the chaos. We want to make a master spreadsheet. But the reality is, you cannot fix the system from within the same state of panic that created the system. You have to stop trying to fix everything just for a moment.
That phrase, just for a moment, is the operative mechanism here.
Yeah.
When you tell your brain, look, we aren't going to fix everything right now, we're just going to pause for 5 minutes, you dramatically lower the cognitive stakes.
It takes the pressure off.
It does. It isn't about permanently abandoning your responsibilities. It's about momentarily stepping off the treadmill so your nervous system can regulate.
So what does this all mean in practice? It's exactly like dealing with a computer that has completely frozen because the CPU is maxed out running too many background processes.
Right.
When your computer freezes, you don't frantically open more programs to try and diagnose the problem. You don't wildly click the mouse 100 times.
That never works.
No. You hit Control-Alt-Delete.
Yeah.
You do a hard reboot to forcibly clear the active memory, the RAM, so the operating system can actually function again.
Clearing the RAM is a phenomenal way to visualize what we need to do to the brain.
It makes sense, right?
It does. When you are caught in the loop, Your brain is operating heavily in what neuroscientists call the default mode network.
The default mode network, what does that do?
This is the network responsible for mind wandering, ruminating on the past, and obsessing over future anxieties.
Oh, all the fun stuff.
Exactly. To hit Control-Alt-Delete on the default mode network, you have to actively replace the frantic future-based question of what should I do next
Wait, a what?
with the grounding present-based question of what actually matters right now in this exact physical space.
So you focus on something impossibly small, something simple, something real and tangible.
Yes. Maybe it's just feeling the cold glass of water against your hand. Maybe it's paying attention to the texture of the fabric on your chair, or listening to the specific hum of the refrigerator.
Which sounds almost insultingly simple when you are dealing with a massive existential crisis. Like, how does holding a glass of water fix burnout?
It doesn't fix the burnout directly. It changes the state of the machine processing the burnout.
I like that.
Neurologically, your brain has a very hard time processing highly abstract, future-based anxieties and immediate tactile sensory input simultaneously.
Oh, I can't do both.
Right. By forcing your attention onto the concrete physical sensation of the water glass, you pull your brain out of the default mode network and into the task positive network.
You are literally rerouting the electrical activity in your brain.
You are. You signal to your nervous system, look, right here, right now, in this physical room, there are no predators. We are safe.
You break the spell of the noise.
You do. But now we must be absolutely clear about what this reset accomplishes. Focusing on the physical reality of the moment does not make your overarching problems magically disappear.
Right, the laundry is still sitting there. The difficult career choices are still waiting. The emails haven't answered themselves.
Exactly. The hard reset doesn't do your taxes for you.
If only.
If only. But what it does do is give your mind the necessary space to let the ambient noise quiet down. When you are trapped in the loop, your brain is hyper-vigilant, trying to solve 1,000 borrowed problems simultaneously.
Which is exhausting.
Extremely. By narrowing your focus to what is real and immediate, the frantic, panicked energy dissipates. And only from that place of quiet, from that restored, cleared RAM, can you begin to actually look at your mountain of shoulds and evaluate which efforts are aligned with your true self and which ones are just inherited noise.
It restores your capacity to choose. Because when you are overwhelmed, you have no capacity. The pause gives you your capacity back.
Capacity is the critical metric here. Burnout destroys our capacity to distinguish between what matters and what doesn't. The pause restores the baseline so we can make that distinction.
That is huge. If you are listening to this right now and you've been carrying that invisible weight, waking up tired, feeling like you're perpetually failing a test you never even studied for, we want to synthesize the ultimate comforting takeaway from this entire exploration. It is a profound reframing of your own internal narrative. You are not lazy. You are not broken.
You are simply overwhelmed.
Yes, you are simply overwhelmed by a system of noise working exactly as it was designed to, just against your best interests.
The way forward isn't to whip yourself harder. It isn't to force more misaligned effort into a depleted, exhausted system.
Right.
Recognizing that your brain is simply misinterpreting artificial metrics as survival threats, well, it allows you to step back with a sense of self-compassion rather than self-judgment.
You have to give yourself permission to hit Control-Alt-Delete, to stop trying to push harder and fix the entire mountain, to let the noise quiet down, find what is small and real right in front of you, and simply begin again.
And as we wrap up our analysis of these themes of burnout and resetting the mind, I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over, something to explore on your own today.
Please.
If you were to pause right now and identify just one standard you are holding yourself to today, maybe a standard of career success, of productivity, of physical appearance, that you never actually chose for yourself, what would it be?
Wow. That is a deeply revealing question to carry with you.
It really makes you think.
It does. Well, thank you so much for joining us and spending your valuable time with us on this deep dive. We hope this conversation has given you the tools and the permission to step back and clear the memory.
It has been an absolute pleasure to explore this with you. Wishing you all the best as you go forward to pause, reflect, and reset. Goodbye for now.
Bye, everyone. Take care.